right, hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Oh,
Awesome. Today we're going to be tackling something I know a lot of you guys are grappling with.
oh yeah.
It's about masculinity
Okay.
and family. In today's world, it's a big one.
It is a big one.
And to help us kind of unpack all of this, we're going to be exploring a book called Red Pill Reckoning. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah. And you know what I think is so interesting about it? It really digs into the historical and societal shifts that have kind of led us to where we are today.
It does. And it's not just like a surface level look either. It really goes deep.
Right.
Like think evolutionary biology, psychology, even real world examples.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't just about abstract theory. It's about connecting those theories to the challenges men are facing in their everyday lives.
Absolutely. And especially within their marriages.
Yes. And speaking of challenges, Red Pill Reckoning starts off with the statistics. It's pretty hard hitting.
Okay, I'm listening.
1 in 4 children in the U.S.
Wow.
are growing up without a father in the picture. That's according to the U.S. Census Bureau.
Yeah, that's a significant number.
It is. And, the U.S. Department of Justice, they've actually highlighted kind of the ripple effects of this.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Well, things like, increased financial struggles, kids having a tougher time in school, and even a greater likelihood of emotional issues later on in life.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does.
About the role of fathers. I mean, what does this say about the role fathers play?
Yeah.
Not just, as providers,
Yeah.
but as figures of authority.
Yeah.
Role models. It's pretty crucial stuff.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, think about it. How important was your father figure to you?
Right.
Food for thought, right?
Definitely.
Especially for those of us who are husbands and fathers ourselves. All right, so moving on. The book then dives into this trend. It's the decline of religion, particularly Christianity in Western societies. It's pretty hard to ignore, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a trend.
And Red Pill Reckoning suggests there might be a connection between this decline and, the rise of a few things.
Yeah.
Like family breakdown. This sense of moral relativism that we see everywhere.
Interesting.
It is.
The book doesn't shy away from religion either.
Right.
It actually presents it as a framework, a potential framework for morality and for community building.
It does.
Yeah.
But it also acknowledges, any belief system can be misused.
Of course. I find it interesting how they contrast the West
Yes.
with countries that have held on to a strong religious ethos.
Yes.
Places like Japan, Singapore, they tend to have lower crime rates, more stable families. It's something to think about.
It is. So we're seeing a shift in values. That's what the book's saying.
Yeah.
And with this decline in traditional belief systems, Red Pill Reckoning argues that a new set of ideologies have popped up. They're often called progressive ideologies. Familiar with those?
I know.
Things like Marxism, critical theories, queer theory, gender studies.
Right.
Right.
And certain types of feminism.
Yes. And the book's stance is, it's pretty bold. It argues that these ideologies, while often, presented as promoting equality,
Yeah.
they're actually undermining traditional masculine values. And they're contributing to what the book calls a culture of victimhood.
That's a pretty strong statement.
It is. There's definitely a lot to unpack there. And they even use this real-life example.
Oh, tell me about it.
It really struck me. The case of the Google engineer. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, yeah. Refresh my memory.
He got fired for questioning the company's diversity policy.
Right.
And according to Red Pill Reckoning, this shows how these ideologies can actually, they stifle open discourse and dissent, even when those dissenting voices are raising, legitimate concern.
It's a good question to ask, isn't it?
It is.
Are these ideologies actually creating more equality? Or are they leading to more division, more resentment,
Right.
especially among men who feel like their voices aren't being heard? What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. And this ties into another big theme in Red Pill Reckoning. It's the emphasis on biological differences between men and women.
Okay.
We're not talking opinions here. We're talking scientific evidence, like muscle mass, bone density, even differences in spatial reasoning and how emotions are processed.
And the book argues that these biological differences, they've actually shaped societal roles throughout history.
They have.
And that trying to erase these differences can have some, unintended consequences.
It's not about saying one gender's better. It's about recognizing that men and women, we have different strengths and weaknesses that have evolved, over a very long time.
I see.
Red Pill Reckoning uses a really interesting example, the U.S. military. Remember when they tried to implement gender-neutral physical standards?
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, according to the book, it led to higher injury rates for women.
Wow.
It highlights the potential downsides of ignoring biological realities. You can't just pretend they don't exist.
It's a good point.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about the decline of religion, the rise of progressive ideologies, and the biological differences between men and women. Pretty heavy stuff, right?
It is, yeah. Lots to think about.
But Red Pill Reckoning doesn't stop there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It goes on to talk about competition, strength, and courage. Qualities it argues are under attack in today's world. And you know what's fascinating? It ties all of this back to our evolutionary past. It presents competition as a fundamental driver
Yeah.
of human progress, not just in society, but in our biology too. Think about it. From ancient Greece to our modern world, competition has always been there, pushing us to be better, to innovate, to achieve amazing things.
Yeah, you're right. I've never thought about it like that.
And it's not just about, societal progress.
Yeah.
The book also argues that competition has psychological benefits. Like it builds resilience, self-confidence,
Yeah.
that ability to push your boundaries,
Right.
come back stronger. And these are qualities that are essential, not just for individual men, but for healthy relationships, for families. It all connects.
Red Pill Reckoning is basically saying that men are driven to compete,
Yes.
to achieve, to conquer.
Yeah.
It's part of our biology, they argue. It's something to be celebrated, not stifled.
Exactly. So we're talking about rediscovering those core masculine traits. But Red Pill Reckoning doesn't just celebrate competition and strength. It also emphasizes something else.
What's that?
Rejecting victimhood
Okay.
and embracing personal responsibility.
Interesting. So it's not just about recognizing those innate drives. It's about how we channel them,
It is. It is.
how we take ownership. I like that.
Yeah. And what's so compelling is that the book doesn't just criticize victimhood culture, it really delves into the psychology behind it. It explains how constantly seeing yourself as a victim, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Can.
It prevents you from taking ownership of your life, making choices that lead to positive outcome.
If you're always blaming external forces for your problems, you're never going to look inward, are you?
Exactly.
Oh.
And that's where personal responsibility comes in. They use this great example in the book. Thomas Edison, remember that quote? I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's powerful. A great illustration of someone who embraced challenges, who didn't see himself as a victim.
That's the kind of mindset we need more of, especially these days.
Yeah. So what Red Pill Reckoning is calling for is a shift from a victimhood mindset to a growth mindset, seeing setbacks as opportunities
I like that. Opportunities.
to learn and grow rather than just reasons to give up or blame others.
Makes sense.
So we've covered a lot here. The decline of religion, the rise of progressive ideologies, biological differences, competition, strength, responsibility. Wow.
It is a lot. It's kind of overwhelming, isn't it, when you think about it all at once?
It is. It is. But there's one more key theme in Red Pill Reckoning that we need to touch on.
Okay, what's that?
Brotherhood.
Brotherhood. Okay.
And camaraderie.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that the book, it backs this up with scientific research,
Oh, really?
showing that men with strong social connections, they have lower stress levels, higher self-esteem, and better overall health. And it's not just about having buddies to hang out with,
Yeah.
It's about having that support system, that sense of belonging, a shared purpose.
I can see that.
And, the book goes deep into history to illustrate this point. It looks at things like Spartan military training, the Samurai Bushido Code. These were traditions that forged incredible bonds between men. They fostered strength and resilience.
Those were different times, though, weren't they?
They were,
Yeah.
but what's important to note, these traditions, they weren't just about physical strength or military stuff. They were about instilling a sense of loyalty, honor, responsibility in young men. It was about brotherhood.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing.
It is. But Red Pill Reckoning also acknowledges that in our modern world, with all the technology, all the distractions, these bonds of brotherhood, well, they're facing new challenges.
How so?
I mean, we're more connected than ever,
Right.
but so many men feel
Yeah.
kind of alone.
That's true.
It's a paradox of our time, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So what's the solution?
Well, that's why Red Pill Reckoning encourages men to actively cultivate meaningful connection
Okay.
in real life.
Right.
To step away from the screens and engage in face-to-face interaction.
It's about finding those shared experiences,
Yes.
those moments of camaraderie, the things that remind us we're not alone in this. It's about building a brotherhood that can support us through the challenges and celebrate the victories. That's what Red Pill Reckoning is all about.
Yes. And we've only just scratched the surface here. What are your initial thoughts? What stands out to you so far?
You know, it's It's really how this book challenges so many of the assumptions we have about masculinity today. It's a different perspective.
Right.
One that's grounded in biology, history, psychology.
The perspective that a lot of men, especially those in the married red pill community, they're finding that it resonates deeply with their own experiences. It's like finally someone gets it. It's a call to rediscover that strength and resilience that has always been there at the heart of masculinity, and to understand the forces that are trying to undermine it. But we've only just begun. There's so much more to unpack in this deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks, because we're going to delve deeper into these themes, explore some of the solutions Red Pill Reckoning offers for navigating the challenges men face. In today's world, it only gets more insightful from here.
You won't want to miss it. All right, so we're back, ready to dive a little deeper into Red Pill Reckoning.
Let's do it.
Last time, we talked about some pretty heavy stuff. The decline of religion, those ideologies that challenge masculinity, even biological differences between men and women. It's a lot, you know?
It is. And I think for a lot of men, especially those who are married, trying to figure out relationships these days, all these changes can be, well, disorienting.
That's where the whole red pill idea comes in, right?
Exactly. It's about, waking up, seeing things for what they are, understanding the forces at play. And Red Pill Reckoning really digs into one of those forces. These forced diversity and inclusion programs.
Oh, yeah, those. On the surface, they sound good, don't they?
They do. Who wouldn't want more diversity and inclusion? But the book, it makes a pretty interesting argument.
What's that?
It argues that while, the intentions might be good, these programs often backfire.
How so?
When companies are more focused on meeting quotas than hiring the best people, it can breed resentment. Performance can take a hit. And sometimes it even hurts the very people those programs are supposed to help.
They have this example in the book, right? A company that implemented a diversity quota. They wanted to seem more progressive, but they ended up hiring less qualified people. And it actually hurt their productivity. In the end, it led to layoffs.
It's like they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
So the book is saying true diversity. It's about embracing different viewpoints, experiences, not just checking boxes.
Right. And forcing inclusion, it can actually stifle innovation, lead to groupthink. Everyone's so afraid to say the wrong thing.
So it's not about being against diversity. It's about, questioning the methods, being aware of the unintended consequences.
Makes sense.
And speaking of controversial stances, Red Pill Reckoning also tackles feminist dogma.
Oh, okay. That's a big one.
It is. And I know this is a sensitive topic for some people, but the book, it doesn't hold back.
What does it say?
It argues that feminist ideology, it's everywhere now in our institutions, especially education and law. And the book says this has led to a skewed view of gender roles, and it's demonized masculinity.
It's a bold claim.
Yeah, and they use the hashtag #MeToo movement as an example. Now, the book acknowledges, the importance of addressing sexual harassment, but it argues that the movement went too far, created a climate of fear, where men are often presumed guilty until proven innocent. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a tricky one. It's complex. I think the book is highlighting the potential for things to go too far when you paint entire groups with a broad brush.
Right. It's about nuance, to process. Those things sometimes get lost in these big social movements.
Yeah, they can.
The book also tackles that, the so-called wage gap.
Ah, yes, the wage.
And it claims that when you consider things like career choices, hours worked, the gap shrinks significantly.
Interesting. So it's challenging that narrative, the one that paints men as oppressors, women as victims.
Exactly. It's about looking beyond the headlines, digging into the data. Red Pill Reckoning is encouraging us to think critically, to question those narratives that are often presented as the absolute truth.
It's refreshing to see a book that's willing to challenge the status quo like that.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about some controversial stuff. Let's switch gears a bit. Okay. Let's talk about something Red Pill Reckoning really championed. Petition.
Petition.
Yeah, it's a theme that runs through the whole book, and it connects to a lot of what we've already talked about. What's fascinating is how the book makes this case for competition as a driver of human progress.
Okay.
And it's not just about winning or losing, right? It's about pushing yourself to be better, to innovate, to achieve great things. It's part of our DNA, this drive.
I see, yeah. It's like that intrinsic motivation.
Exactly. The book uses the example of ancient Greece, where competition, whether in athletics or warfare, it wasn't just about personal glory. It was about pushing the limits of human potential, achieving greatness for your city-state.
It was about something bigger than yourself.
It was. And this ties into the book's argument that competition isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. It builds resilience, self-confidence, that ability to bounce back from setbacks. essential qualities for men, especially in today's world.
Yeah, it's a tough world out there. You got to be able to roll with the punches.
I do. So we're not just talking about being competitive in sports or business. It's about that inner drive, that striving for excellence in all areas of life, pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, realizing your full potential.
I like that. It's about that constant self-improvement.
It is. And it connects back to personal responsibility. Competition is about taking ownership of your life, striving to be the best version of yourself, not settling for mediocrity. Red Pill Reckoning also makes a strong case for courage, discipline, strength, both physical and mental. It argues that these qualities are essential for men to thrive, to fulfill their roles as protectors and providers.
I think so.
And the book's perspective is that these masculine virtues, they're under attack. We're told to be soft, sensitive, avoid conflict. But the book argues that this can actually be harmful to men.
Interesting. So it's not about suppressing those qualities. It's about channeling them in a healthy way.
That's right. And they use some powerful examples in the book. Firefighters rushing into burning buildings, soldiers enduring grueling training, athletes pushing their bodies to the limit. All examples of men displaying courage, discipline, strength. And not for personal gain, but for the benefit of others.
It's about service.
It is. It's about duty, honor. It's about being the kind of man who can be relied upon to protect and provide for his family, his community. Red Pill Reckoning is saying we need to reclaim these virtues, not just for men, but for society as a whole.
It's a powerful message.
It is. All right, now let's talk about something that can be really tough for a lot of men. Victimhood culture. Red Pill Reckoning argues that this mindset, while often presented as empowering, can actually be really bad for personal growth and for society.
I think it's important to clarify. The book isn't saying that people don't face real hardships or injustice. It's about what happens when we let that victim mentality take over. We become passive, powerless.
It's like we give away our agency, our ability to shape our own lives.
Exactly. And it all comes back to personal responsibility. Red Pill Reckoning is urging us to take ownership even when things are tough. Focus on what we can control. Make choices that empower us, not victimize us.
They have this great analogy in the book. They compare life to a game of cards. We don't choose the cards we're dealt, but we do choose how we play them.
That's a good one. It's a reminder that we always have choices, even when it doesn't feel like it.
So, Red Pill Reckoning is encouraging us to shift from a victimhood mindset to a growth mindset, seeing challenges as opportunity to learn, to grow, not as reasons to give up or blame others.
It's about taking responsibility for our actions, striving to be the best we can be no matter what life throws at us.
That's a powerful message. Now, one last key theme from Red Pill Reckoning that we need to touch on: motherhood, camaraderie. And this is especially relevant for the married Red Pill community.
Why is that?
When you start questioning the dominant narratives about masculinity relationships, it can be isolated. That's where having a community of like-minded men comes in. It's crucial.
So it's about support, understanding.
It is. Red Pill Reckoning argues that these bonds of brotherhood, they're essential for men's well-being. It even points to research showing that men with strong social connections have less stress, higher self-esteem, better overall health.
It's like having a tribe, a group of people who get you.
It is. The book also explores how these bonds have been formed throughout history. Things like Spartan military training, the Samurai Bushido Code. These were traditions that instilled a sense of loyalty, honor, responsibility in young men.
It wasn't just about being tough guys, it was about something deeper.
Exactly. It was about building camaraderie, a shared purpose, a brotherhood that could overcome anything. And in our modern world, where men are facing so many challenges to their traditional roles and identities, these bonds are more important than ever.
It's about having that support system, a group of guys who understand what you're going through, who can offer encouragement, guidance.
So, Red Pill Reckoning is encouraging men to cultivate these connections, to find other men who share their values, who can provide that brotherhood that's so vital for our well-being.
It's about building a community that can help us face the challenges and rediscover that strength and purpose that comes from being a man, in the truest sense.
So we've covered a lot in this part. Forced diversity, feminist dogma, competition, courage, responsibility, brotherhood. It's been a whirlwind, but we're not done yet. There's still more to explore in Red Pill Reckoning. In the final part, we'll dive into the book's conclusion, where it offers practical advice for reclaiming your masculinity and building a better future for yourself and your family.
Don't miss it, folks. It only gets more insightful from here.
Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into Red Pill Reckoning. We've spent the last two parts exploring some really heavy stuff, the challenges men are up against in today's world.
Yeah, from those crumbling traditional institutions to, well, the rise of ideologies that don't exactly line up with traditional masculinity.
It can feel kind of overwhelming, honestly. But here's the thing, Red Pill Reckoning, it doesn't just leave you with a diagnosis, It offers solutions, a path forward for men who are looking to reclaim their strength, their purpose, their sense of self.
Does. And you hit the nail on the head there with reclaiming. This last part really connects all that societal and cultural stuff we've been talking about to something intensely personal.
Responsibility, right.
Exactly. Recognizing that we have the power, even in this world that sometimes feels like it's working against us, to shape our own destinies, to rise above the challenges, to become the best versions of ourselves.
And it's not just talking about responsibility in some abstract way either. Red Pill Reckoning uses real examples. People who have achieved incredible things because they took ownership of their lives. One that really stuck with me, the story of Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. I mean, love him or hate him, you can't deny the guy's drive, his ambition. He sets these massive goals, and he's not afraid to take risks, even when it seems like everyone's betting against him.
And the book uses him as an example of what? Embodying this idea of responsibility, not just for his own success, but for pushing the boundaries of what's possible for all of us.
It's true. There's something inspiring about that, about his story.
I think it's that reminder that responsibility is not a burden. It's a source of strength. It's what allows us to create, to build, to leave a mark on the world. And for a lot of men who are feeling disillusioned, lost, that message, it hits home hard.
Red Pill Reckoning is basically saying you don't have to be a victim of your circumstance. You have the power to choose your own path, set your own goal, create a life that reflects what you truly value.
And it doesn't stop with our personal lives either.
No, it extends outward to our families, our community.
Which takes us back to those conversations about fatherhood, about brotherhood.
Right. Red Pill Reckoning argues that men, we have a vital role in building a better future. Not just for ourselves, but for the generations coming up behind us. It's about being leaders, being role models, creating a world worth inheriting.
A call to action, a rediscovery of that sense of purpose. And the book knows, it acknowledges, we're living in a world that often feels hostile to those traditional masculine values. Everywhere you turn, there's a message telling you to be less assertive, less competitive, less driven. But it doesn't offer despair. It offers hope.
It's about recognizing those challenges, seeing the forces at work, and making the choice to push back, to reclaim masculinity, not in an aggressive, domineering way, but with strength, integrity, a commitment to a better world for ourselves and the people we care about.
And it gets practical. It actually gives advice on how to do this. Develop your strength, both physical and mental. Cultivate discipline, courage, find mentors. Build those strong communities with men who share your values. Taking action, step by step, day by day, becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Powerful stuff. And for a lot of men out there, especially those wrestling with marriage, with family life in this crazy world, Red Pill Reckoning is a roadmap.
It is.
A way to find their footing and build a life that's fulfilling, meaningful.
So there you have it, Red Pill Reckoning, a deep dive into the challenges and the opportunities for men today.
It's a book that challenges the way we think, sparks those important conversations, and at the end of the day, offers hope, empowerment.
If you want to explore these ideas further, I highly recommend checking it out. You can find Red Pill Reckoning on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
It's a read that might just shift your perspective, maybe even change your life.
Keep questioning, keep growing, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself. Until next time.